I'm here with JK, the man, the myth, the legend, founder of Tweet Hunter that was recently acquired. JK, how you doing?
Better than ever. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for those that may not know you, do you want to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah. What's up, everyone? I'm JK. I'm Andrew's friend. We built and sold Tweet Hunter, which is kind of a tweet scheduler, just recently on Twitter, and we sold it to Limpire for 1.4 mil, which was like around 1x ARR, maybe like 6 months ago. That was 2021, and yeah, that's how I connected with Andrew. Funny story, like I had a few questions about acquisition for Andrew. And I told Andrew, hey, let's open a call. And he was kind enough to agree to a call. But it was like in a weird spot. I don't know. Like I had I didn't know when it was. And I actually ghosted Andrew for the first time. And I felt so bad for it. I was like, fuck, I ghosted Andrew. And then he was kind enough to agree to a second call. So shout out to you as well, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, I like the hat, like St. Cash. I always like when you say that on Twitter.
Yeah.
How are things like post-acquisition? Like, how you doing? You sold the business. That thing took you, what, 2 years to build? 3 years to build?
It took around one. Actually, like ever since like idea to selling it, like 1 or 1.5 maybe. But things are kind of the same. Actually, I was recording a YouTube video the other day. And one of the angles that we wanted to take, because I'm working with my editor and the guy's like really good at this. He said, I want you to like tell their actual thing. Like, are you actually like happier, actually like better after the acquisition? And personally, it was kind of the same thing. I remember when there were like 3 big moments, right? The first big moment was when it was official. To me, that was the one that hit the hardest. To me, it was like, that's great. The third moment, I skipped over a second on purpose, but the third moment was when the money hit, that like when we announced it, right, on Twitter, because we sold it and then I could announce maybe like 6 months down the road. That was really cool as well, because I could see all the support from people. Yeah, but the middle part, which was supposedly when it's the hardest, when the money hits the bank account and you get the notification, when you get the notification, the thing comes down. Right, it's like a 6-figure payment came down, and I'm like, back up. Like I just didn't even pay attention to it because I was with my family. That didn't hit as hard. I want to ask you that actually. That was one of the questions I had for you.
Yeah, we're doing like a reverse podcast here, so everybody's aware. JK, before we started recording, JK said he had some questions for me. So,
yeah. How was it for you? So, like, would you? I don't know. Like to me, it didn't hit as hard. How about you? Was it hard? Like, what was it like? Describe the moment when the money hit for you.
Yeah. So I'll give some context for listeners. I had a startup before acquire.com, plugging it. It was called Bizness Apps, spelled BIZNESS apps. And it was like a no code mobile app builder. Grew it to about 10 million in recurring revenue and then sold to a private equity firm and then bootstrapped that business like you. So, when that wire hits and you bootstrap the business, it's pretty meaningful. But I remember it. We had a couple false starts. So that's like a term where you have a circle closing day where everything's, going to happen that day. And it's supposed to happen on a Friday, which would be awesome day to close an acquisition, wire hits, and it didn't go through. And I think the reason, if I recall, it was, due diligence was like really intense. There's a lot of people involved. My whole management team was, kind of ready to celebrate, and it just didn't go through because I guess it's like, I think there was a guy in like Europe who needed to submit one last paper to approve the acquisition with the firm, and he just wasn't awake or something like that. And at least that's what they told me. Anyways, it ended up closing next week on Tuesday. So that period, I remember just being like, is it going to close?
Right. You didn't enjoy your weekend.
No, not at all. It was terrible.
Regarding that, I watched your podcast was my first million. Is there a reason why you're not comfortable saying like how much did it sell for?
I made a promise to my wife to never share it. And then I also think it's just kind of one of those things where it's like you're either bragging or it's never enough. And it's just, to me, I like to just say it made me happy, just not specifically stating the number.
I got you. Were you happy before the money?
Well, I started the business candidly to become a millionaire. That was I grew up kind of poor. And so entrepreneurship for me was like a survival mechanism. It wasn't to be cool or anything like that. But I want to tell you about the wire date.
Oh, okay.
So when the money hit, I was actually like super nervous. I remember like also when it finally closed, my week also sucked because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like what just happened? Like this finally, because I'd been working at this business for 8 years. So yeah, when the wire hit, I remember I was like, I had management, like my CFO, my VP of engineering, they were based in San Francisco and we had moved the company down to San Diego. And so like, they weren't there to celebrate. And so it was kind of, and then the wire hit, like right before the wire cutoff date. So it was kind of like it closed and then I was just kind of like, holy shit, what'd I do?
Was it like anticlimactic?
Very, very. It wasn't like, I didn't celebrate that night. I just kind of was like, damn, because we went through, we hired Pillsbury, who's a big fancy law firm, to help with all the legal stuff, just because I wanted to make sure, like, we do this correctly. And our reps and warranties were like 2 pages long, everything. So it was just kind of like, and it was a big firm that bought us. So I think there's a little bit of kind of like, I hope I did everything right. And they're not going to like say, hey, you did something wrong, which is a totally irrational fear. But that was my experience, man. I wasn't like, it took like 2 weeks for me to like process the win, I guess.
Right. When did you start? Well, it was microacquire, now it's acquire.com, but did you start it right after that?
No. So I actually, during due diligence, and this is reflecting back on it. So I started Bizness Apps when I was 21 and when I sold it, I was 29. And so it's like so much of my like personal identity. I remember also kind of being like, what am I going to do when I sell this thing? Like I'm no longer important. Like I love building startups. What am I going to do? So I ended up starting a crypto company called Altcoin. That one wasn't nearly as successful, but I was literally building another company like during due diligence. And so
yeah, you get that itch, right? Like you want to do it.
I was like, I cannot, like, because my transition period agreed with the firm. I negotiated a bunch of interesting, like the deal that we structured was really good. Do you want to hear about those points? I could share that.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to make one point that I think it's interesting because the kind of right after I sold it, I tried to start a few other things that were like just complete, just it didn't work out, right? And I was listening to, again, My First Million podcast, this guy that runs Tiger 21. He says that he kind of coaches other entrepreneurs that have already sold a big company. And sometimes they sold a big company and they're off that high and they want to start another one, but they assume that it's going to turn out as well. So I wanted to know, like, if this was the one you found it right after, to see if it was like home run after home run, but like you actually was not a home run, right? You had to have a few like pauses before you built something else that was big. Is that kind of the case here?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Tiger 21. So I did have 2 angel investors, both 50K checks, and Christian Friedman, he's in Tiger 21. He told me some cool stuff in that group. I believe like the net worth.
Are you in it?
No, I don't join groups like that. I don't have enough money. I think Tiger 21's limit's like 40 million plus or something like that.
I don't know.
It's really high. Anyways, what was I going to say?
Some points about the crypto thing, and then you started another thing.
Well, let's go back to starting a second company after your first company. Depending on the size of the outcome, like I have one friend, I won't name his name, but after he sold a company for like 130 million, he went on to start another company where he piled in probably 10 million of his own money, bought a domain for like $1 million. It was like a social app, and it just completely didn't work out. And I think kind of if I could go back in time, when you come off a sizable win that's meaningful to you, I think you do as an entrepreneur have like an elevated level of confidence. And so you might venture out into a type of business that maybe isn't your strong suit, or it's beyond what your skill sets really are, or maybe you just got lucky, like,
100%.
Yeah. Like with business apps, I do believe there's a large factor of luck, because the iPhone just came out. We were one of the first sort of, hey, you can build an app for your business really easily. It was, we were at the point where we would only pick up the phone if like you're ready to buy, because it was just such a transformational change in tech at the time.
Same. Like at Twitter, like Tweet Hunter started right when the Twitter thing was like the creator economy on Twitter, at least, was really starting to take off. So like in hindsight, it was luck, like 100% luck.
Yeah, well, it's really called
not 100%,
timing.
but you know what I mean. Luck was a big factor.
Yeah, it's market timing, and they say that's the biggest factor for a startup's, like how big can it really grow? You do kind of need to start something at the right time. Like there's countless examples of this. Like there's a ton of like YouTube alternatives that didn't work out until Adobe Flash came out, made videos smaller. That made YouTube work. Airbnb only worked because after the financial crisis, I mean, not only worked, but people were more open to letting people stay in their houses because they needed extra money.
So for you now, which you really have your finger on the pulse and what's going on, given that, you see all these startups going around, what is something that it's a trend that you think right now is kind of underrated, but you see it being big?
I think newsletters and like meme accounts. This is just like a personal sort of like, I've seen numbers behind some good newsletters, meme accounts. I'm just like, what am I doing? This is like a 2-person shop and they're making like, $1 million plus in profit.
Are you talking kind of like Morning Brew and Hustle?
No, I won't say names, but just kind of like social, like big on Instagram, big on Twitter. And they just kind of post memes and create a giant audience, and they funnel it into a newsletter. And this one I'm specifically talking about is more like satire of financial news and stuff like that.
Blink twice if it's strong fan.
No, it's not. but I'm gonna blink twice anyways. I think those businesses just seem super fun because it's like, I'm sure the person making it loves comedy, and I think if you can take any serious topic and make it funny, you can grow a real audience in that niche. And then finance, you can get sponsors like for credit cards or for loans or for financial advice. That's just such a high LTV category. What else? SaaS companies. That just to state the obvious. I see a lot.
I believe we've made it 17 minutes here. We haven't mentioned AI.
I know, right? We've been seeing a huge influx of AI companies on Acquire to the point where we've had to like not list a few just because there's so many like image creators, house image creators, chat GPT bots that all kind of do the same thing. It's been interesting just seeing like how quickly these are being made. And there's one I looked at literally yesterday, and it was started 3 months ago and has 1.6 million users, which is insane. So
what does it do?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I could probably look it up. But we see like 3,000 plus startups a month. So I kind of lose track at times.
Very nice. I have another question. When you obviously see a lot of people selling their stuff, do you find that it's common that they try to do another thing and then they fail at the second business because like you and I, we had that false confidence, but we maybe got lucky?
That's a great question. I don't keep track with founders enough to like yearly check in or something like that. That's something I probably should do. But generally 80% of the time someone's selling a business, they want to start something new. That's like the main reason for sale. And that's the reason.
Which is kind of ironic, right? Because they made it so they wouldn't have to work, but they want to keep working. You know what I mean?
That was one of the reasons I sold. I was getting, tired of working on the same thing. I wanted to branch out into something new. I wanted to, enter a different, business model. A story I'll give you. There's a company called, I always love sharing this story because it's kind of like, when you sell, you're a builder, you sell to a scaler takes it, grows it, builder goes on and builds something new and both win. There's a company called Median that was acquired by Spencer Scott. I'm sure you've seen him on Twitter, but he bought it from this individual named Derek Hallman, and they have a new company called Workshop now, and they're huge. I think they have like 150 plus employees already. And like, so when they sold Median, which I believe they sold for $300,000 or $400,000. They use that as seed funding to go fund something bigger. So sometimes it works really well, but in my personal case, I started a crypto company. I'm not technical. So like enter the most technical arena. We were trying to speed up times in the Ethereum blockchain. So it was kind of like trying to solve like a math problem. We made a little bit of like progress on that and ended up selling it to a company that had the right regulatory compliances, because to launch it, there was a lot of like we need to become like a broker dealer. We need to register with the SEC. We should have the capital to do that. But so that's kind of like the false sense of confidence. I think like as a non-technical founder, me starting a really technical startup makes no sense. So I think sometimes, that's where I think self-reflection comes in. I just saw crypto going up and I was like, that's the next paradigm shift. Internet, mobile, blockchain. I'm going to jump on that next. But in hindsight, I wish I took a year off and like traveled the world or something.
I like that you swung big first time, you were swinging big the second time. Like you saw the trends and you're like, yeah, I think this is where the future is going. That's something I really respect from you, man. And kind of something I wanted to ask you on the right now, which was like, you're in a very interesting kind of not vacuum, but space in between people who are not on Twitter, but they have huge businesses. Right. And people who are like kind of in the creator economy, because you're big on Twitter and a lot of people respect you in that sense. But when I look at the deals you're doing, man, and the people on acquire.com, and I'm like, man, am I thinking too small? Like these guys are killing it with like fucking $10 million exits, $50 million exits. But I'm thinking with the creator economy or like courses or like coaching programs, am I playing it too small? Like, have you ever looked at creators, our side of Twitter, and be like, these guys are playing a small game and they could be playing a bigger game?
No, I think my thought is, and I want to tell you, there's two things I want to touch on is, number one, I think there's always this sort of grass is always greener sort of perspective with entrepreneurs. I talked to a lot of bootstrap founders that wish they raised venture capital a couple years ago. Still, like, it's like that's really great you didn't, because, your business is doing great, and when you sell it, it's going to be a great outcome, but they wish they went bigger. And then I talked to a lot of venture-backed founders that wish they didn't raise and that they were bootstrapped. So it's kind of like, as an entrepreneur, you're like never perfectly happy. I don't know. But to answer your question directly, in terms of like when I see people, quote unquote, let's call it thinking small versus thinking big, I think it's awesome. I mean, I always believe success should be defined by you. And that's a cheesy quote because everyone says it, but it's true. If you want to do a one person entrepreneur thing, that's badass. Like I brought up the newsletter guy, like, it's cool. And then, I got respect for people raising like hundreds of millions of dollars and just, you're climbing Mount Everest, man. Like, good luck. Like the chances of succeeding are very, very low, but like you're going for it. That's badass. So I kind of respect anyone just doing what they're doing because they like doing it.
I respect that answer. That's cool. I gotta ask you, man. I feel like people know that about your work, but I want to know.
Let me tell you one more thing. So, do you want to hear the founding story of Microacquire?
Go.
So I started as a side project. I didn't start it with like a big audacious, like this is going to be huge. I had just kind of gotten out of altcoin. I'll call that my landing the plane in the Hudson River, if you will. Basically, left that company and had absolutely nothing to do. And so I became like one of the top 100 Madden players. That I had so much free time. And my wife was kidding. Yeah, I was like number 98 for like.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
Yeah, it's my favorite embarrassingly like dumb achievement. And you have to play like 8, 9, 10 games a day. I had no ideas. Like I didn't really want to get a job. But I was like 31 or I can't remember the age. I'm 34 now. And I started consulting for a few startups and for free, just taking calls, just, hey, like, here's what I do. And I met this startup called Spiff, which was trying to disrupt these tools that calculate your sales team's commissions. So at Bizness Apps with my sales team, we use a tool called Exactly. And it's a boring tool, but if you have a big sales team, you have accelerators, you have bonuses, you have, complex sales comp plans, and it can be a pain in the ass to calculate that at the end of the month. So my CFO was always kind of begging for this tool so he didn't have to do the math. Anyways, the tool sucked, and it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And this company Spiff had this really cool like live dashboard. So when you do like a close one in Salesforce, like automatically updates and shows how much commission you're going to make. And I listened to one call with the CEO, doing a sales call. And I just said like, hey, can I just come and help with sales and marketing? I have literally nothing to do. And so I was working on MicroAcquire now, acquire.com on the side as a side project. So I think, even me now, like, I think it's important, after kind of like my altcoin sort of thing where I was like, this is going to be huge. Let's go all in right from the start. I think it's important to just, for a lot of entrepreneurs to kind of baby step into a business because you don't really truly know where it's going to go. And
what does that mean? Like tactically, baby step into a business?
Well, let's say you have a job. Let's say, your business probably isn't going to be able to support yourself for, maybe a year or two, depending on how fast you grow. Some businesses will get to $1 million in revenue in a year, but I think on average it takes a business, 3-4 years. So during that time period, your best, investor can be your job. And so that's kind of what I did. I just picked up like a short-term CRO gig where I basically had something to do, and then I let the product develop, and then I slowly started marketing it. And then I was there for 10 months and then left to focus on MicroAcquire full time. And
how did you know it was the right move to go full time?
What's that?
How did you know, or how do you know when it was the time to go full time?
So I was going to leave sooner. I joined and they had just left their previous CRO go, and they had this other competitor that was like really neck and neck. And once you get a competitor starting to take the lead, it's really hard to take that lead back. So I saw that in sales, we call it knife fighting. Oddly enough. So a lot of deals, we'd hear this other competitor come up. So we had to have sort of a defensive sort of, sales strategy. So the first thing I did was, secret shop the competitor. They were literally sending like Excel sheets, like talking trash on this other company. So it was kind of like that scene in Eminem at 8 Mile where it's like, I know everything you're going to say against me. So I was like, all right, thanks for that. So now we know what you're saying against us on sales calls. And then our win rate went way up. But in terms of, what was the question? I was like,
timing. Well, how did you know you wanted to go full time?
Oh yeah. So, I stayed until I raised the Series A. I just basically fixed the sales process, trained. I inherited 3 pretty green sales reps. So kind of helped build the initial sales motion, built the brand a little bit, got them into like TechCrunch, Sales Hacker, Forbes. And then I had like a pre-written resignation letter as soon as the money hit for the Series A. And I had to like send it to the board and everything. And I was just like, hey, I've been working on this other thing. And if you're going to do this, one thing to just keep in mind is read your employment contract and make sure you get I can't remember the name of the document, but it's basically a letter that says like, hey, I worked here, but like you don't own anything that I've been working on, just for protection if something becomes big that you work on.
That's big advice. For everybody listening, that's big. It can bite you in the ass. I hear a lot about stories about founders, or I've read a few stories about founders, and they're like, because they didn't pay attention to a legal issue in the beginning, it ends up like wrecking them big time. Like Ray Kroc from McDonald's, like he didn't do a deal right with the McDonald's brothers, and it ended up being like a huge pain in the ass.
Pied Piper, man.
I don't know. What is that? What is that?
Have you seen Silicon Valley show with Russ? Okay, so there's in the beginning, I don't know the lead character's name, but he's working on something, but he did one thing on his computer at work. And then the main company is called like Hooli. It's supposed to be like Google, like an evil version of it. And they were like, well, that's ours now because you worked on it at work.
That's BS.
Yeah, but hey, I want to talk about deal structures. Are you comfortable talking about those?
Yeah. About like my deal structure with Tweet Hunter? Yeah. So I think what was kind of interesting about that deal structure was that I had the audience, but didn't have a product. Whereas my co-founders, Steve and Thomas, had a product, but they didn't have the audience. So that question actually pops up often. And I'm really glad I asked around to a few friends before I made I came up with the structure. So nothing fancy, but the way we structured that was I was gonna get 10% at launch. I was gonna get 15% at 25K MRR, I believe, and I was gonna get 25% at 40K MRR because we thought if we got 40K MRR, we're gonna be able to exit for 4 mil. If I own 25% of it, that I was gonna be a millionaire in cash. Didn't work that way, but that was kind of the logic behind it. And I feel like that was we all were kind of comfortable with that deal because it was performance based, right? So in the beginning, they pay just for access to your audience, and then you keep ramping up as you unlock MRR. So that was kind of the pros. That was kind of the pros. But there was one con that I thought it's important for everybody to know, either as the guy with the audience or the guys with the product, is that you got to make sure that the guy with the audience doesn't start another business once they hit that mark, because like you and I said, right, you get that itch, you want to do something else. And I did start any other businesses, and I do believe that 300 could have been bigger if I just focused on the thing. Like in hindsight, that was obvious, right? But you can only connect the points looking backwards, right? So like I wish we had that clause so I could just focus on my thing. But that was kind of we structured our deal.
Should have raised venture capital, man. It's in every term sheet. Can't work on other stuff. You can't
really?
Most of them, yeah. Can't work on other stuff without approval. Can't raise your salary. Some of them have some nasty stuff in there.
What's a nasty story you have of venture capital? I'd love to hear that.
I think the worst is when you get like a really junior associate that maybe like, I think this is like the stress I hear the most from founders, because we work with venture-backed businesses that are looking to sell, and some are just looking to get out. Like they just want to get me out of the business. And it's usually and it's fascinating to me because I think as an investor, if you're going to do one thing, number one, you don't really know how to build startups. You just talk about like what you've seen and stuff. That's like, hey, here's this movie I've seen, like try that. It's just like, dude, no. But if you have a junior associate or new partner and you're their first deal and their career like depends on your success, they're going to push you to just like basically like they're going to ride you. They're going to, ask for just like you to do like push you too hard too fast, when sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. And I've heard of a lot of situations where these investors, they made really bad investments at their VC fund and they're concerned about their performance. I guess put another way, the investor puts their success above your success. And so that just creates this natural tension that's just terrible. And you're basically, working for this person. So those ones sucked here.
Interesting. As a direct response guy, I want to ask this. So you said you were kind of shadow shopping to your competitors and you got the Google Sheets they sent where they were talking like shit about other people. Like tactically, how did you do that? I'm very interested in how you use that tactic to sell more.
Yeah. Like how did I actually like
shadow shopping is kind of simple, right? You book a call, right? But like on the sales call, how did you play the Eminem thing? And you said that when two people are like kind of neck to neck and one takes an advantage, it's kind of hard to take it back. Like maybe I'd like to like hear a story on that and how you got that back. You know what I mean?
Like what I did with information to make the sales calls better. Mm-hmm. We would basically plant like what I call like traps or grenades in our sales calls. So when we started, like my favorite sales question is, what made you take this call today? Because that just puts you into a spider web of different directions. Like I'm just looking at solutions. I'm looking at you and a competitor. I'm looking to fix this problem. I came across your website. Like there's so many varying degrees of like interest levels. So, and so we were in so many calls with this direct competitor. And so, you don't want to talk about your competition too much in a sales call. But one of my favorite sort of like ways to kind of mosey around that, because your job in sales is literally super simple. It's to just help people out. And the way you help people out is you just teach them something they didn't know. That's kind of all you do. And so sometimes we would be in so many different calls where they were looking at purchasing the software from, company A or company B? And so I'd say, oh, so you're talking to company B? Would you like me to spend this whole sales call, just kind of walking through our product? And obviously I'd love to learn more about your business and, why you took this call. Or do you want me to just go straight into, how we're different from company B? And so that's kind of a green light to just basically go in on every single objection that they're hearing from the other company. And then you also want to know who have they talked to first. So if they've talked to company B first, I know what they've said. So I can say I already know the objections. Like, if you talk to them, they're probably going to tell you these things. Have they mentioned that? Yeah. So you kind of already
then you kind of look like the expert, right? Because it's like, yeah, totally, I've been there.
And we would take it a little bit farther where we'd say, when you follow up with them, ask them these 3 things. I can't remember exactly what they were, but they were questions where I knew if they were asked, we would win, the call or the deal typically, because they were questions that really pushed into our strengths or things that we did that they didn't. So we just asked them like, how long is integration or implementation post signing? It was shorter at our company. So we wanted them to say, well, it's like 90 days, with us, it's 60 days. So we kind of plant those where they go back to the competitor and then say the questions that we want them to say, and then be like, oh, company A is better.
Ooh, cool question. What if they talked with them before?
Well, that makes it easier because you already know kind of the conversation and how it went. And this company was interesting, and it's not always like this, but they literally sent me an Excel sheet with row by row. And this is in like the 10 to 20 person size company, knife fighting is the term. And they literally had an Excel sheet, like saying the CEO like does this, and like your implementation specialist is like 25 and doesn't know anything. I'd never seen anything so blatantly, just like it basically was an Excel sheet with a bunch of insults. It was pretty unprofessional. And it is the worst way to sell because you shouldn't act like that in business, and it's very off-putting, especially to larger size companies. It was fascinating to get. I got it back and I was like, are you guys really sending this out? Like,
this is a smart move. If I could put a name to what you're doing, maybe tell me if this is kind of right or wrong, but it's like they were pushing people towards their solution, as in like, hey, this is why we're better, buy. But you were pulling people into your solution, as in, this is why this is the only solution that makes sense. If you want, come here, right? You were pulling, they were pushing. Is that kind of how you see it?
Well, the way that, I remember, really, in sales, you just want to find like the problem that they have, then you want to just talk about that. That's an ideal sales call. But if they're further down the line where the problem has been made aware, they're aware of solutions. So that's why that question, why'd you take this call today? Someone will say like, we're looking for a commission automation tool. We're looking at you and 2 other competitors. So we thought we'd take the call. So that call, you're going to really be focusing on like, what did you like about the other competitors? What didn't you like? What is kind of like an ideal solution in your mind? And then you obviously talk about your comp plan. How much time are you spending on that? How much time would you like to spend on that? And then what would you spend that time on if you didn't have to do that? And that's kind of like painting the world after the solution's implemented. But yeah, if they talk to the first company first, you kind of already know like, okay, they definitely have said terrible things about us. So, and we know specifically which ones they, brought up. So let's talk about that. And so we would sometimes ask, like, did they tell you like our implementation time is this? No, it's not. It's around this time. Did they send you an Excel sheet? Yeah, we got that too. Happy to walk you through it. This was like 5 years ago.
Oh, this is great, man. I love this. This is awesome. You know what I think? It's like you gave them the grenades, and on that call with the other guys, they were just pulling the pins. Just blowing the call right there.
Well, our close rate compared to them, we were losing every single deal to them. And then by the time I left, I think our win rate over them, we were like 50-50. So that was a nice, if you're the first company to be spoken with, you tend to have an advantage. But yeah, that was a fun ride. But my point, just kind of circling everything out, was even I didn't jump right into like, acquire. I kind of put my toe in there, figured out if there was anything real. And then I jumped in full time. Maybe like 8 months after launch or something like that, 6 months. So,
how are you so zen? How are you so peaceful? I see a lot of the guys, they're like very high strung. I'm very high strung. Like I bet if we measure cortisol, I'd be like way higher and I'm younger than you. How do you remain so calm?
Well, in what way do I appear calm?
Every single way, man. Just ask anybody who listens to your podcast.
That's a good question, and I appreciate the compliment. See, I guess maybe like on the outside I appear calm. I'm a pretty laid back person. Like I'm very simple.
But you're also a killer though. Like you like the top 10, top 100 man player, ultra successful entrepreneur. Like you have like that. You have the dog in you, right? But you it's like you're calm in the outside. So I'm really interested in how you manage that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm definitely competitive. I'll give you some other fun facts. I used to be like I have like 30 chess trophies from when I was a kid. What else was I really good at as a kid? Skateboarding and surfing, but no trophies there. I don't know. Anything I like concentrate really hard on, and then I don't really do anything else. I don't play pickleball. I don't play I'll work out, just work out. But other than that, I like playing business. So I concentrate kind of everything into just one area. And I think that's just how I compete is just, when I really fall in love with something or building something, I kind of put everything I have into it. There's a quote from Kobe Bryant I always think about where if I win or lose, the one thing I want to be able to say at the end is I gave it my all. So I do kind of work pretty aggressively. But I don't know, in terms of my personality, I used to do the weirdest shit. When I was driving to work at my old company, because we had an office, we're remote at Acquire, but I put on stand-up comedy on the drive to work at 7:00 just because I like to laugh. And then I'm a firm believer that especially just in business and life, anything, the calmer you are or the less stressed out you get, the better decisions you make, and because your mind is more clear. And one way that's really helped me with that is just journaling. And so I'll write my journal, it's like an online one. It's nothing fancy, but I'll write things that, things that are going great, things that are going wrong, where I think I'll be in 30 days, and just some stuff I'm grateful for. And what I find is every time I look back on what's, going wrong, I write, because I write it once a month, the problem that I wrote about, the big problem that you have today, in a month it's gone, because it's you fixed it. It was some maybe it was an employee not working out, maybe it was a feature that's not working, customer canceled, whatever. Then in 30 days you have some other problem. And so it kind of mentally builds this sort of oh yeah, that problem. Oh, I've already forgotten about that. I got this problem now. And then you start to realize every problem that feels like a huge problem in the moment, it's really not, because you'll fix it. And then, so I always say every problem has a solution, because it kind of does. Yeah, I don't really, and then I just don't check anything this is a good question. I don't know. I don't think I'm the chillest person.
This can't be the first time somebody has asked you this question.
It kind of is. Yeah. I mean,
wow. Okay. I'll take that. I'll take the credit for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it, but what the other things I'll add to it is I don't consume noise, if you will. I don't check the stock market. I don't really care about politics.
How about Twitter?
Twitter, I usually am just kind of I try to stay in my lane. I don't
you don't go and check your engagement, how many likes you got sometimes.
I mean, I'll literally every single person that comments on a tweet of mine. And then I'll read those. And that's how I think of content for other tweets. That's kind of my thing. That's why you never see me comment on people, because I'm oh, that's a great question. And then I'll just kind of
you turn it into another piece of content.
Yeah. Right? It's just kind of I used to, write in my journal a lot more often. Now I only do it once a month. But Twitter is kind of my new journal. So yeah, when I tweet, I just kind of will write. It's usually from my kitchen while I'm making coffee. I'll just write some sort of tweet that I like. That's kind of as far as I go. I don't have a big strategy or plan or anything like that. So
I had to ask you that. Now I feel complete. I finally asked you the questions I wanted to ask you. I know we only had 45 minutes scheduled, but is that how it goes normally? 45 minutes?
You want to go another 10 minutes? I was just it was on my calendar, so I don't know.
Oh, I think it's a good place to end. I think we covered a bunch of cool stuff today. What do you think?
I want to ask you, two more things. I mean, are you down for that?
Yeah, let's go.
So what are you working on like these days? So you sold Tweet Hunter. Sounds like, and if I have any advice for you, take your time on like whatever you're going to do next. Cause that's probably like one thing, if I can go back and change anything, is I wish I gave myself like at least like a month or two, ideally 6. What are you doing now?
Yeah, and I appreciate the advice. Actually, when you said, what was it? Take one step back so you can take 2 steps forward, or slow down to speed up. Is that what you said? I felt that.
Yeah.
When you said that, I was like, yeah, I rushed it. I wish I didn't, but now I'm in this coaching program, Lexington Cash, right? But it's like a community. I call it the 3 B's: big community, big accounts making big money. So I want to show like people who have a bunch of likes but no cash, like how to monetize their thing. It's gonna be kind of a Tiger 21 kind of thing, more of like for Instagram and Twitter, but we're taking our time on that. Again, we're going slow, but it's that community. It's a high ticket community, and
yeah, but that's promoting it. But that's like low lift, and you get to hang out with cool people and like help them and take like your learnings. That's good. Hang out in there for a little bit. Yeah. If I had any advice for you, just enjoy the win. That's one thing I wish I did, because I just rolled right into some crazy crypto company. And it sounds like you're just hanging out with friends and, helping them grow their business.
I mean, it's the business, because we do have like a sales team and whatnot. Like it is stressful. Maybe because, I'm just not, I'm learning as I go. But I don't know, man. Like, do you have this? Resting makes me anxious a lot.
Oh, me
like
too.
Trying to turn it off. It's like when people are like, yeah, take a day off. That sounds horrible. To me, it's like, I get shaky. I don't like it.
Yeah, I work every day. Like except for the weekends. So I got a kid, so that's kind of like my forced sort of like function. But if I didn't have a kid, like I'd probably be working like every single day. What was I gonna say? I had a good tip for you. I'm the same way. When I get stressed out, the best ways for me to relieve stress is I just work. Like if there's a problem, instead of like stressing out about it, I just go and fix it. Even if I have to work like 12 hours that day or something like that.
But it feels better than not fixing it. You know what I mean? Like going in offense feels so much better than going on defense.
Well, it's actually like there's some science to it, I guess, or something, because you're constantly thinking about it. You're procrastinating, you're thinking about this problem. And then when you work on the problem, it goes away and you're not stressed out anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm working out almost every day now, because trying to guess, is this a workout day? Because I used to do like 1 day on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. It was kind of like, I was keep thinking about it. And then I'm like, I was thinking and dreading next day's workout. So I'm like, you know what, let me just do it every day, just so I wouldn't have to think about it. And it's actually easier working out more than less now. It's weird, but I relate to what you said, as in like, if you want to de-stress about work, get the work done.
Yeah, no, it works. Okay, final question. Have you bought anything cool since you sold Tweet Hunter?
The biggest one was taking my here's a cool story. Probably your listeners are not familiar with this, but when my grandma never asks for anything, like she just never did ever since I was a kid, right? Like we were gonna have dinner, and if she needed the salt, she wouldn't ask you, "Hey Andrew, can you pass me the salt?" She would like walk, like stand up, get the salt, sit back down. But one day when I was like 11 or 12, we were watching TV, and there was a scene in Venice, right? She was kind of sleepy and it slipped out. She said, "You know what, mijo? Like when I was a kid, I saw a movie in Venice and I wanted to go to Venice ever since." I was like 11 or 12 then. And I told her, like, you know what, abuelita, like one day I'm going to be rich and I'm going to take you to Venice, right? So wire hits, all my family, I buy them all a ticket. We go to Italy, we go to Venice, we take that picture. And that was like the day that personally I was like, I made it. So to me, that was like the coolest thing I did with the money. I bought a bunch of dumb shit, but that was the one cool thing that I'm like, this was a good thing.
That's beautiful. That's awesome, man. I remember when I sold my business, Christian Friedland gave me this golden advice. He's like, don't buy anything for 12 months, literally nothing. Like, so it like settles in and stuff like that. He's like, maybe buy like, one toy or something like that, but just kind of live the way you are, adjust to it. Cause when you sell a business, like usually when you have a job and you have a steady paycheck, your net worth kind of goes up like in a graph. But as an entrepreneur, it's just this big, like
right. It's like a step.
So you got to like grow into it a little bit mentally. So
Did you buy anything fun?
I did. I bought a C63 AMG Mercedes and put on like an aftermarket exhaust. I'm like a big car guy. My dad was in the car industry, and so he kind of from an early age, I just remember him working on cars. So I bought I bought it was a 2012 Mercedes-Benz C63. I bought it for $32,000 off this kid who it was his fucking high school car, and I'm buying it as like my like dream car. I'm like, damn, you kids in LA. Anyways,
I want to.
But was it worth it? I resold it recently for like 40 grand.
No, but that's the number. Was it worth it to you emotionally?
I honestly wish I didn't sell it, but that's, no regrets.
All right, there you go.
I can only fit 2 cars in my garage. And so I didn't want to just sit on my driveway. So I was like, yeah, I'll get rid of it. And I didn't want to have like a car that just sits there.
Gotcha. When you say take your time, do you mean not start a new business?
No. So when like you have a big windfall of money, there's so many entrepreneurs that I've heard of just doing dumb stuff with the money. Like they'll go out and, they'll, typically the biggest one is starting like another business, and they, fund like a huge product development team. Even, my mentor, Christian Friedland's done this, he's tried to start like, other SaaS companies. And it's kind of like the entrepreneurship, like addiction. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is just, when you got a bunch of money, like you can buy dumb stuff. And so if you're not used to that, and I really wasn't, so just letting it kind of like, okay, settle in, this is real. And then I hired a wealth manager to help sound decisions. And I don't even have like index funds and stuff like that. But the point is settle in, enjoy the win, and then don't spend any money for a little bit. So you don't do anything stupid or impulsive or, because, and then my uncle, he called me when I sold he's probably my most successful uncle and a good mentor. And I remember he gave me this advice. He's like, hey, congrats. But remember, it's easy to make money. It's hard to keep money. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. And so just a tip.
I'll say a few things that are kind of worth it, and tell me if you agree with this. Good food, totally worth it. Speed, totally worth it. Like hiring assistants, people to do the menial work you don't want to do, totally great. Yeah, food, that's good. Speed, really good. It's just fixing minor inconveniences in your life. Like those are really, really good.
Yeah, I would say my thing is anything that you touch on a daily basis, buy the best version of it. Like if it's a couch, if you're on the couch all day, you shouldn't be, but if you are, like have a good couch. Computer chair, like monitors. If you're on the computer all day, you might as well have a good one. Car, if you like driving and you drive every day, have a nice car. Bed, because you lay in it every fucking night. That's it. The rest is junk. Yeah,
I'm not a big car guy, so like it wouldn't do anything for me. But I'm a big technologist, so I bought like a really good Mac, a really good iPad. Really happy with those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a huge ROI. All right, JK. Well, we're hitting the top of the hour, but any
I think it was fun. What do you think?
Yeah, this is cool. It's like first podcast. Maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, why not? It's really cool to talk to you, man. I'm a big fan, and really, I just want to say, like, in behalf of all the community, it's awesome to see what you're building. Really big respect for you.
I appreciate that. Well, congrats on the acquisition, man. I remember you came out of that thing and then it started growing, and I even went in there and was like, this is badass. So I'm still a paying customer. So you built something great, man. I think you've inspired a lot of people. So congrats on everything.
Appreciate it, man.
And like saying cash.
You got it right. All right. See you, man.
All right. Cheers, JK.